Of the neon moon. So we're celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary. You don't see much of my wife on this channel. And since we're celebrating 15 years, we've come downtown to spend a few days. So we're walking out for a walk, and I thought we would share, I don't know, some insight on 15 years of marriage, 17 years almost total. We dated for 11 months.
We're
engaged for 11 months, and this weekend, 15 years of marriage. And you hear people that ask for things are like, what are things you learned, or what advice would you give to newlyweds? You know, you hear these types of questions. So we don't have anything really planned out. I guess we'll just have a conversation and talk about what we've done and maybe what we've observed, that maybe lessons that we've learned from to not do with each other, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
What made you stay married to me for 15 years?
Well, you're hot and all that other stuff.
Hot and all that other stuff.
That's what Johnny Lawrence said, remember, on Cobra Kai?
Oh, yeah.
She's hot and all that other stuff. So, well,
I guess, you know what? First, let's start off with, what should a woman look for before she even decides to marry a guy? Before you can make it to 15 years, guys, you got to like win her over some way, right? What are some qualities women maybe should look for in a man to be like, yeah, I'd marry that guy?
Well, this might sound kind of harsh, but this is the way I think, and this is how I've thought for a long time. You don't marry an idiot.
Don't marry an idiot. Okay, that's rule number one.
Yeah, don't marry an idiot.
Fundamental principle number one.
Because you could love an idiot, but that does not make for a good marriage.
Okay.
And I figured out, I think we've kind of talked about this here and there. I kind of figured out what don't be an idiot means.
Okay, what does don't be, so principle number one, guys, don't be an idiot.
Don't be an idiot. I figured out what that means. More or less. I don't know what they yelled. I apparently think and thought, even back then, that responsibility, a man who is responsible, is pretty hot.
Okay.
Because how we would say it was, he has his stuff together. What that really meant was, he takes care of himself, he's responsible for himself. So it's not somebody that you have to baby along. This is a man who's ready to go.
Because you got enough crap to worry about, now you've got to raise a boy, basically. So you don't. So I would assume this means, guys, you can't be living with your parents.
No.
You got to have, probably a good career, something, working.
Yes.
Maybe you're not at the prime of your life, but you're working.
You don't have to be a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
Have a job.
Okay.
Don't live with your mom.
Don't live with your mom.
And don't smoke weed.
Don't smoke weed.
And that eliminated like most of the eligible guys in my 20s.
What about porn?
Oh, no. I looked for that in your house. I told him a long time ago, I was like, I searched those videos, I looked all the stuff, and I wasn't going to accept, oh, that's my brother's. As an excuse.
So guys don't have porn.
I couldn't find any. So it was in the clear to proceed.
All right. So don't be an idiot. Under the don't be an idiot umbrella is have your crap together.
Get rid of the porn.
Have a job. Don't be living with your parents. Don't smoke weed, and don't be watching porn.
That's just a start.
Those are just fundamentals. That's kind of like
101.
That's like what's that? The admission. What is it? What are the words I'm looking for? Like those are the bare minimum of like.
Yes.
For like admission.
That's just that's a screening test.
That's a screening test.
You just got to pass those.
Okay, so that's number one.
You can't pass those. What are we doing here?
That's the price of admission. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
Okay. Next, don't be an idiot.
Yes.
Now
don't be an idiot. And well, one thing that I really liked about you is that, not to say any of the other guys in the past were like this, but you observe your friends, you see it, you know people, you know couples in your family, whether they're married or not. You never talked ugly to me.
I never talked ugly to you.
Yeah, so no cuss words, definitely no cuss words.
Okay.
Definitely no cuss words at me, about me. And so that's an important one. Because like I said, you see friends, you see family in relationships and how they treat each other, especially how you treat somebody else when you're angry at them, when you're mad at them. I think that says a lot about who you are at your core.
Okay.
Like, because I don't, just in general, I don't care how mad you are with somebody, you never call anyone a derogatory term, no matter how angry you are, because that speaks volumes about your character. So that's something I always looked at ever since I was a teenager. And so part of that is that you don't talk ugly to me even if you're mad. Doesn't mean you can't be upset, but don't cuss at me.
Okay.
That's not gonna fly. That's a deal breaker.
That's a deal breaker.
I don't care how mad you are. I don't think you shouldn't be that ugly towards somebody that you love, no matter how angry you are.
Okay. So, observing, so guys...
And you've never called me any kind of names or anything like that. You've never even yelled at me, which I think is maybe unique.
I've never yelled at her. I tell her from time to time, I don't know if she's aware of this. This isn't bragging. We're not some goody two-shoes couple or anything like that, but we've never had a fight.
I don't think there's anything to fight about.
We've never had a fight. We've never had, like, in 17 years, we've never had a fight. We've never had an argument where I've never yelled at her.
I did think Hector was going to yell at me early on in our marriage. This is a long time ago, so we're talking 15 years ago. So we were newly married. We had a joint checkbook. I didn't have my own income at the time. I was in graduate school. And so we shared the checking account. And so we would have to balance that. Well, you know, sometimes I'd say, I'll enter these receipts later. You know, time escapes you sometimes.
This was back in the day before, like, there was online banking. Online banking wasn't even a thing. So you kind of had to wait till you get, like, your bank statement.
Yeah.
And then, like, try to reconcile that manually, kind of like old school checkbook style.
Yes.
So this is before online banking.
Yeah. And so one day...
We're going this way or that way?
Yeah. Whatever.
Let's go this way.
Shade. And so I heard all this yelling coming from the office. I think there was like a curse word in there or two. Let's go, better not poop on me. And so I thought, oh my goodness, what is going on? So as I approached the office, I could hear Hector definitely raising his voice, yelling. And like I said, I think I heard an F word in there. And I realized that I had not entered receipts in so long. The checkbook was off by $1,000. It might even have been $2,000. So let's just say $1,500. That's no $20, $50, or $200 error. So that was a big chunk and not responsible of me at all. And
so the checkbook was off by, like, let's just say $1,500. So here I am. I'm like,
do you remember this?
I remember. So again, this is back before online banking. You're not getting real time, like, you can check like every hour of what you got in your bank account, right?
It's not on your phone.
Not on your phone or any of that stuff. So you had to wait till your bank statement gets in. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I know how much money's in there. So I'm like spending money or gas or food or doing whatever. And then I get the bank statement and it's like, where's all the money? and so what happens? You walk in the office,
yes.
What happens?
Well, I was like,
you know I'm pissed.
Yes, because I can hear the yelling and the F-bomb, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hear what my mistake was. I screwed up. So I'm like, okay, I gotta take it, right? He's gonna yell at me because he's angry, rightfully so. He's very responsible with me. And I was like, oh gosh, so I'm just bracing myself. So I go into the office, and I don't even know how I asked him, but I'm like, what's going on?
Dear, what is so upsetting, dear?
Why are you mad, bro? And I fully braced myself for you to yell and scream at me. and you completely shocked me because you didn't. And I distinctly remember you just calmly, like we're having any other conversation, said, the checkbook is off, you didn't enter, the receipts, and it's off by over $1,000 or by $1,500, whatever it was. It was over 1,000. It was not under 1,000. And I just remember being like so relieved that, because I really thought that you were gonna yell at me and maybe cuss. And I would have understood. I was like, oh gosh, I gotta face it, but you didn't.
I think that's a big thing.
And that's just a choice. That's a choice that you made.
Yeah.
So that's why because then however you respond to somebody, if you respond to them like attacking them, automatically we just come off as like, I'm going to defend myself.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, I'm going to come out and defend myself. So whatever intensity you go at somebody, they're going to respond the same, if not even more intense. So I think that was just very smart of you. I don't know if you did it on purpose or if you were just still like, I'm not gonna. I don't know why did you not?
I don't know why.
That was a choice. Obviously, it was a choice that you made not to yell at me, because you were just yelling right before I walked in.
Yeah, it was like a switch that just went off. I don't know if we wanted to go down the deep rabbit hole, which I don't think we have. I don't want to do in this video, but
maybe the Holy Spirit stopped you.
I guess if I just had to give it a short answer was, when I was a kid, we always got yelled at for anything. Not anything. I got yelled at for a lot of things. What kid doesn't, right? But like, they'd get crazy yelling at. And there was like a, I guess, childhood thing. And I don't know, just something in me or my mind or whatever was just like, I'm never going to like yell like that. Like I was yelled at, kind of. Like it's almost like just, I don't know, like you said, like a choice or decision that I kind of made early on that
I'm not going to do
I'm
that.
I'm not going to repeat, or I don't want to repeat the responses and the behaviors, I guess, that I went through. So, I don't know, that's the only, like, easy answer I could give. But I think that's a very common reason why people fight and argue is money. I think that's a big one for especially like young married couples, is because now you're combining finances and whatnot. And I think that's one of the, I don't know, if we probably peel back the layers of why people get divorced, like you hear, it's like the divorce is over 60% or 50%, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
And so I think a big one, I know a big one is people fighting over finances and money. So that could have been like,
it's a very real thing, and it adds real stress, and it's real life. And
so principle number 1, don't be an idiot. Have your stuff together. Have a job. Have some kind of focus, some kind of drive to get that's number 1, to have a woman to consider to marry you. Number 2 is control your temper.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't be cussing and yelling at her or towards other people, because if she sees you treating others that way, more than likely you'll probably treat her the same way. I'm assuming, right? That's probably what your thought process is.
I guess so, and I just didn't realize it. But my friend said something in college that really stuck with me. When we were in college, somebody's boyfriend maybe yelled, or I think maybe it was a guy she was dating, called her a name. He got mad about something and called her a name, and she called the whole deal off. I just remember her telling me, my own father doesn't speak to me that way. Who are you?
Oh, that's a good point.
That was her thought process, and that just stuck with me.
I think that's a big thing. Women will look like, will measure the man that they're going to marry or what have to like their father, right? So if you were raised by your father, and I think that's, I don't know, again, we could go down the deeper psychological things. Like you see, it's sad, you will see women that choose men that are like their father, even on a negative side, men that mistreat them, and you're like, why does this girl always choose guys that mistreat her? Because maybe that's the way she was raised. And then on the other side, you have women that were not raised that way, and their father treated them with respect and love and everything like that, so they'll kind of measure other men and choose men like that. So it makes sense when she's like, my own father doesn't talk to me this way, like, who are you to speak to me that way? That makes sense.
So it kind of opened my eyes. It's like, my dad's never cussed at me, like, sure, as a kid growing up, my dad, I wasn't a perfect kid, nobody is. So yeah, I heard my dad raise his voice and yell before, but you know, not talking to me ugly like that. So yeah, I'm not gonna sign up for that for the rest of my life. No.
Let's do a third one.
Okay.
So number one, just to repeat, don't be an idiot. Have your stuff together. I think that's a really good one.
It covers a lot.
It covers a lot of things. Again,
very
it's the cost of admission, right? That's number one. Number two, control your temper. Have manners. Be aware of how you talk to people. What would be the third one that a man needs to know in order for a woman to be like, you know what, he's marriage material? What would be a third one?
Well,
just talk about your own experience. Like, what was maybe your third one, if you have a third one?
well, just off the top of my head, I would just say be nice. Little things.
Well, that kind of ties into the second one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. Do you have something else in mind? I'm just saying, like, I realized later in life what I meant, because when I was younger, my friends and I was like, I need somebody who's ready to go. Somebody that doesn't need a babysitter. Like, I don't want to be your cheerleader. You're like, oh, you can do it.
Oh, okay. So I think that's a good one.
Because that was a big thing with other boys in the past, and it's like, you get tired of trying to encourage someone and lift someone up when they're just like, no, I'm just no good, and I'm a douchebag, and oh, you're too good for me.
So no self-confidence. So men that are not having confidence in yourself, where I definitely think that's a big one. You hear guys where it's like, oh, she's too good for me, or I don't deserve you. That's self-confidence there.
And I realized,
lack of confidence.
Now that we mentioned that, that's something I was paying attention to see if you ever said to me, because before I met you, I had 3 guys tell me, you're too good for me. And
So that's a red flag.
And then, so by the time I got to you, I already had it in my mind. If he tells me, anybody that I would have dated in the future, tells me, you're too good for me, I'm going to say, thank you for saving my time, you are correct, you are a douchebag, and we should just end it here. That was my thought, because those guys ended up being right. In the moment, I thought, you know what, you were right. You suck. But now that a lot of time has passed, learning stuff that you and I have both learned, looking back, I was able to see that these guys were broken guys. And it's not that that I was too good for them.
They had things to work on themselves.
They were broken guys, and they didn't feel good about themselves. And so they thought, you're a good woman, and I don't deserve good.
So the third one is, guys, personal development. You've got to personally develop yourself, work on your limited mindset, and if you feel like, oh, she's too, I don't deserve her, she's too good for me, maybe that's a message to you that you need to maybe revisit number one. Get your act together, maybe. Yeah. Personal development.
So these guys.
So that's a red flag.
That was a red flag, and you know what? And back then, I just thought, okay, he's right. He's a douchebag. He's gonna lie. He's gonna cheat. He's gonna flirt with all these other girls. But now that some decades have passed, and I can look back and.
You know what? I can see that becoming like a pattern. Like guys that are like, maybe they've got things they need to work on, relationship-wise, spiritually, that kind of thing, and they continue to make the same mistakes. And if you continue to put up with that, and you've ignored the red flags of I'm not good enough for you, whatever, and if you condone that a year or two down the road and you're married and he continues to make the same mistakes, he's like, you knew this is who I am. I make these mistakes. So then I can see that becoming like a habitual pattern for him, and then an excuse of why he continues to do the things, because he's like, I've always tried to tell you, this is who I am, or this is me. I can see that I'm no good. And you stuck around.
Yeah, then it's your fault. It's your fault for sticking around after somebody told you. But looking back, and through the magic of social media, I can still see these guys' lives. And and some of us have stayed in touch, and knowing what I said, like what I know, these weren't horrible guys. I wasn't too good for them. they weren't these evil jerks. They had issues that they needed to work on. And it's kind of like what you're saying, you kind of, if things are going too good, you'll do something to self-sabotage and bring yourself down to what's familiar.
The upper limit problem.
That's what those guys were going through. It had nothing to do with me, and it didn't matter what girl they were with. They weren't ready because they needed their own therapy, healing, God, whatever it is. It was all psychological stuff. And because they all had things, you know, it made sense to me. Broken father, my dad's more of my... I had a guy say, sometimes I wish my dad was more of a dad than my friend.
You see that a lot, like, oh, my kid is my best friend and things like that. You see that?
Well, I was surprised he said this. Yeah, so this one time I was in college and the guy I was talking to, he was 21 years old, been partying and drinking since he was 14, and he told me that his dad's friend, his parents divorced. Okay, parents divorced, and when he would hang out with his dad, he would go with his dad to the bars because his dad's friend owned a bar, so they would let the son go in. And this guy's 21, so he's living it up, doing whatever he wants. His parents buy him whatever he wants. He's got whatever car he wants. And I was just very shocked, even back then, at that age, that here's this young party guy who has everything say, I wish my dad would be more of a dad sometimes than my friend. Wow. And that really stuck with me. And so I think that kind of speaks to some issues maybe that he had. And wasn't so much anything to do with me.
Yeah.
So it's just that kind of stuff without going into a ton of detail. I can look back and see the brokenness and it had nothing to do with me. They just thought, I take the compliment that they thought I was a good girl, and they respected that, and they didn't want to let me down, cause me pain. They thought that they were not worthy of something good, whether it was me or somebody else. So I can look back and see that. So that's why when I was dating you, I thought, if this guy says he's too good for me, I'm going to say thank you for not wasting my time. Let's just see you around. Maybe we could be friends, but that's it. Because I had already learned, this guy's going to be right somehow. But it has more to do with their brokenness.
Yeah.
So you got to have yourself, and it's true, you always hear, you got to love yourself before you can love somebody else.
Yeah.
I think that's what all that stuff is about.
Yeah. And
which leads to having your stuff together.
Yeah. So these are all like red flags, right? So red flag is a guy that's got a job. If he doesn't have a job, if he's living with his parents, I mean, he's codependent.
And it doesn't sound like you're going to have any confidence there.
Yep. And then number two would be, monitoring your behavior. How do you lash out? This is stuff I talk about on the channel, is men are not taught how to respond.
Right.
And so because we're not taught or shown how to respond, we either project out or we hide, and we lead the life of passivity. And that leads to a lack of confidence. And that's which ties into this third red flag, which is you're too good for me, that kind of thing. So these are all red flags, guys, to be aware of, maybe that you might be putting out that you might not even be aware of.
There's better light.
Okay. That you might not be aware of. And women, those are some things to look out for as women, and guys, some things to be aware of on your part. So now that we've got that, now you get married.
Yes. Well, you don't yell at me.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that was kind of the...
So why would I ever yell at you?
That was a long introduction of... Because we're talking about like us being married 15 years, and then the intro was about, well, what would even get a woman to marry a man? And those are the three things. Okay. So 15 years have gone by.
I think staying married and helping...
I guess what advice would you give to young women now that they're early married?
I think just being nice for no reason is very important. Like here's a little story. So what I learned too was through church and activities and Bible studies and things like that. is that ultimately you do everything for God, or we're supposed to, right? So all our actions are supposed to glorify God, honor Him in some way. And remember when you were working the bread route and you worked insane, crazy hours?
Yep.
And you would always make yourself sandwiches?
Yep.
And you would take, what, 6 sandwiches?
I would take sandwiches and things like that, yeah.
With you. And so you were still doing jujitsu, you would still weight train. So you're a very active guy, and you're working these crazy long hours, starting in the middle of the night. And sometimes, like I think we were cooking and stuff like that, so you would take, if we had food, you would take that, like an actual hearty meal.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I would just make food for you after you would go to bed, because you would have to go to bed insanely early,
Yeah.
like at 6 and 7 p.m. And sometimes I didn't feel like, and you never asked me to. You never asked me to. You took care of yourself in that. But I didn't want you going to work all those long hours, and I knew you needed something more than sandwiches to sustain you. So a lot of the times I would make your food so that you had something good to take with you. And then sometimes it would be later, and I didn't feel like it. I was like, oh, we don't have anything. It's like, man, I don't want to cook. But I would say, like, I'm tired too, because then I would in graduate school, and I'm like, oh, I'm tired too, though. But I told myself, well, if you don't feel like doing it for your husband, at least do it for God, and do it anyway. So I would still make myself, even though I didn't feel like it. And I wanted to go to bed too, and I felt that I was tired too. But I thought it'd be more important for me to make that sacrifice of my own rest and feelings so that you could have something that was much better for you instead of sandwiches. Because I love you.
So showing up from a place of service out of love for God. That's kind of ultimately where our actions should come from, right? Like loving our neighbor and obviously our spouse. Obviously, yes, because we love them, but most importantly, we're doing it because we love God. Right?
Especially like if you don't want to. Like, what are you going to do when you have kids? Like the other night, Mother's Day night, and our son had an extremely high temperature, the highest it's ever been, and I was wondering, are we going to have to take him into the urgent care or something Sunday night? And I set a timer, and every hour I would wake up, check his temperature, do what I needed to do, like cold compresses and that, to lower his temperature. I'd get it lowered after 20, 40 minutes. I'd go to bed, set an alarm to wake up an hour later. I'd go check him, and his temperature would be up to 102. Wasn't as high as before, but that's how it was over and over, several hours throughout the night. Like, you need to do it. That's a sacrifice out of love. Even if you don't want to, you want to do it for your child or feel like it, and you're tired too, you need to do it. So love is sacrifice. So taking care of your babies like that, or even just for your spouse, so that they don't have puny sandwiches, and offer that sacrifice.
So works of service, that's a big one, whether you like it or not.
And that's responsibility too, whether you like it or not. Exercise too, whether you like it or not. And take care of yourself. Oh, I have a story about my parents. My mom asked my dad, they were like at a dinner party with a bunch of couples, and the ladies were making drinks, and they were all eating, and I guess they drank their drinks, and my mom got up from the table and asked my dad if he wanted another drink, because she was going to make it for him and bring it to him at the table. And the other women were telling my mom, you don't have to make his drink, he can make it himself. Now this is the 90s, and in the 90s I remember everything. This is when women hyphenating their last name was a big common thing. It was like a trend that was really taking off. And so you hear a lot of this, women can do anything, which is true, you know, unless you're talking about physical strength. Guys are gonna outpower us whether we like it or not. And so I remember my dad told me this story, and he said, you know what, Brianna? He's like, what is wrong with being nice? He's like, what is so wrong about that?
Yeah.
My dad didn't say,
Get up, woman, and
hey,
give me a drink.
vieja, give me a drink.
Yeah.
She just said, do you want a drink? I'll make it, I'll bring it for you.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me. What's wrong with being nice?
I think that's where, I mean, you look at today, like you said, women are, this whole feminist movement where they're like, I can do it, I don't need help from any man. Like, you even see women going above, like, really going crazy. Like, a guy opens a door for them, they get mad. They get offended, you know? And I guess if I were to give my perspective on, like, what a guy would look for, so, like, for the ladies, you know, because you kind of gave yours of, like, you know, don't be an idiot, that kind of thing. You know, I've been trying to think of something from, like, a man's perspective. The only thing I can come up with, which kind of ties into what you just said, is, like, I didn't really look for these things, but as I look back, like, hindsight, right, it's always 20/20, I think I would want a woman, or I would look for a woman that would allow me to lead, allow me to be the man, like, allow me to do the things, you know, and this word has been perverted through, you know, through time, is this concept of, like, submission. And not meaning that, like, your dad, like, hey, woman, you know, submit to serve me. Like, no, like, you know, submission is, you know, in the Latin is submissio, right? So to come under the mission of the man. So to allow the man to lead the mission. The man's the general, you're the colonel, you are the XO, and you are to support him in his mission, which is to provide for the family, to do the work, like allowing me to do those things and to trust me to get the things done. You know, because the things that I'm learning, you know, through my own spiritual growth is those are the two temptations that men and women will struggle through from now to the end of the time. Is men, a lack of action, right? We don't have our we don't have our crap together.
Yep.
So we lead this life of passivity where it's like, you know, I'll just let my wife handle it. She's better at it. I'll just let her do the things, you know. And to this day, before I go off on before I get into that, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but to this day, this has just been my own thing. Like, I don't let my wife do my laundry. Like, not once have you ever done my laundry. Not once do I have her.
Maybe I did, and you said, don't touch my stuff.
That's a big thing. One of my pet peeves in life is don't touch my stuff. Like, I understand you're trying to be nice and do my laundry, but please don't do that. Like, put your stuff away, put your own stuff away. And, like, that's just a thing for me. Put things back where they belong and don't touch my stuff. So I've just never...
Which I was happy
I've just never...
that rule.
And this isn't something you got to do. This isn't like a prerequisite, like, guys, do your own laundry. But it's just my own personal thing.
It will help, though.
And so I've never, like, hey, you need to do these things for me. But, you know, men leading this life of passivity because we've never been taught how to respond. And because of that, so our temptation from now and to the end of time is not taking action, letting our wife do things, which her response is going to be trying to always take control. And that's going to be the woman's temptation from now until the end of time, is always trying to take control over things.
Especially if we don't see it happening.
Yeah, and so, but this is a good spiritual lesson, right? So if we look at it from a natural perspective, is we always want things done now, but God's like, it'll get done when I feel that it's ready to get done, kind of thing. It's not time yet. I've got it, noted, I'm going to be doing this, okay? I hear you, Muggsy, okay? And I think that's and especially now, that's a really big thing for me, is just allow me to be the man. I know what needs to happen, and just trust me to get it done. But you know, you got to do the things, guys. Like, if you're going to say to do those things, get them done. Don't wait 5 years before you actually do the thing. I've got many things around the house that I need to get done, but in the long list of everything else is, you know, there's a priority to certain things, and things will get done. So for me, if it was to, you know, if there were any young guys out here, early marriage or, you know, considering getting married, is, you know, at going through the dating process, observe, does that woman allow you to be the man? Or does she always try to take control over things? Because I think that's going to be a red flag on your end when you get married. She's going to always try to take over because the way men and women see things now is, oh, equal. I want to be equal. So I can do the same thing as a man. Well, yes, you can, but submit to his authority, meaning support him, come under his mission, let him be the man, let him do those things that men need to be done.
You know, my dad told me marriage isn't 50-50, because you would hear that that a lot, especially in the 90s. My dad said marriage is 100-100, and that always stuck with me too.
Yeah. You see that stuff in health and fitness too. Like you hear these adages. It's like, oh, like nutrition is 80% of your success. That's 100% of your success. We're currently in the middle. You know, I'm taking Brianna and some of my private clients through a 12-week challenge, something I'm experimenting with, and well, you tell what's happening. Like they're seeing some pretty extraordinary changes. Obviously, physiologically, they're seeing some weight loss and some fat loss. But we were just having a discussion in our little forum group, and they're seeing a lot of other hidden benefits. Other hidden benefits to it. And my whole point here is, it's not just nutrition isn't just this 80% concept. It's 100%. It's everything. And so people think that they're trying. You hear like, oh, I'm trying. Well, there's trying and there's really trying. Yes. Oftentimes, I just posted this in our group. I was like, look, trying is when we say we're trying, but yet we're not seeing the progress, then we're not really trying. We're just lying to ourselves so we can satisfy that, oh, at least I'm trying. I did this one thing. Really trying is something completely different, and that's what you guys are doing right now.
Yeah, it's planning. It's being intentional about what you're going to do, what you're going to consume, your activity, and how you're going to schedule your day, or just how you're going to make sure it's what needs to happen is going to happen. And that's true for anything. And
that ties into what I just said about men, because we're not taught how to respond. We live a life of passivity. So we allow life to happen to us. And we can look at that from a health and fitness perspective. We just go through life and we don't really plan our day out. We're not intentional at all. You know, like, oh, I'll eat when I can, or I'll just pick something up. Like, when you choose the path of passivity, when you live life unintentionally, you become a victim to your circumstances. And then you look at like, oh, well, I'm trying. No, you're not trying. Trying something completely different.
You overwhelmed yourself.
Yeah.
And left not a way out, but that's how you
that's your excuse.
Get off of your plan, off track.
So, and there's a lot of mindset, self-development work that goes into that. So in the beginning, when they first started, our clients and even Brianna was like, I don't know how I'm going to do. I can't do all this stuff. I can't do it. And you're actually doing all of it.
Yes.
In the midst of anniversaries, kids getting sick. Like in the midst of all that, she has
sick, working long hours at work.
She has stayed on track, and she has not faltered once. And she's growing mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physiologically. Her body's changing, and the same thing for many of our clients that are going through that program. So that ties into what you said about your dad. Is relationships are not this 50-50. They're not this 80-20. Like, it's 100% on both sides, because at the end of the day, you get what you put out of things. So if you're only going to put 50% of your effort into something, you're going to get 50% results back. But if you put 100% full effort, you're going to reap what you sow, right? So if you reap 50%, you get 50%.
And if your intention is, well, I do half of this, what about the days you fail? Because you're human. Sometimes you are going to let your emotions get the best of you. You're going to let your laziness get the best of you. Then what? Then you're putting in 30, 40, 20%? That's no good, because you're not going to be perfect consistently the rest of your life. So that's where you got to go for that 100-100. And here's some advice I have, is to initiate, because your family will follow. Whatever the case is, if you don't feel like there's a lot of love in your house and you feel like you're not respected in your house, well, then you take the initiative and do something. Yes, you be the change you want to see in the world. So why don't you go up and start hugging your spouse out of nowhere? They're probably going to be cut off guard, especially if tensions are high, maybe not in a good place in your marriage at the time. But how could that turn things around? You just hug them out of nowhere. Just tell them, I love you out of nowhere, even if you think they don't deserve it. Maybe they made you mad. So, and your kids are going to see it, and your kids are going to be the same way. So initiate. Put your pride to the side. Your pride has nothing to do with it. Who's right and wrong has nothing to do with it. Even if everything's great and happy, just make physical contact. That'll add some happiness, and it'll show your children that you're loved, and your spouse will feel loved. Not all the guys are very, and I think it has a lot to do with how you grew up. Some guys aren't touchy-feely, while others, that's all they do are touchy-feely, and same thing for women. You know,
Is
you've
that
got
the love
everything and everything.
languages? I've never read it, but there's a book called The Love Languages or something.
Yeah, I haven't read it either, but it's real popular. And
Yeah.
so some people show affection by giving gifts, other acts of service,
Acts of
which I
service.
think that's you.
That's me. That's
And
definitely me.
Others are like words.
Your words
and,
of affirmation.
And
Because
touching.
she likes me to touch her and talk
I always
to
tell him I
her.
want to be in his face too.
She's definitely a words of affirmation
And
person. So I've been trying to get better at that.
yeah.
I fondle her from time to time. When they're in the kitchen and it drives my dog nuts, he thinks I'm attacking her and he
Oh my
barks at me.
goodness, it's so
And now
funny.
I do it just to agitate him.
Yes, it's so funny. But yeah, so initiate whatever's going on, even if everything is, great.
I think this will be a good close here because we've been kind of going on and on. So I think to tie back and to sum up,
Don't be an idiot.
don't be an idiot.
Even when you're married, especially when you're married, don't be an idiot.
Yeah, don't be an idiot. Have your
marry
stuff
one, don't be
together.
one.
Monitor your behavior, how you respond to things, the way you talk to people. What was the third one that you had? You said there's a third one.
I don't know.
We don't remember. We have no notes for this. This is real live video.
Well, we said initiate.
There was a third one.
Don't cuss at me.
That was the second one. Anyway, and then mine was, a woman that will allow you to be the man, to come under your mission, to come under your authority to lead, right? And for you to treat her, as your woman, that kind of thing. And I guess the third one, to sum everything up, would
Was
be,
it healing yourself?
it was your own self-development,
You know
right?
what I'm saying?
Self-development.
Not thinking that you're unworthy
Yeah, don't
of
feel like
goodness.
you're unworthy. And if you feel that, maybe that's some inner work that you need to work on. You need to work on your confidence. Maybe that means you need to start working out, get in shape, those kind of things, because those things boost your self-confidence. What we know at the end of the day, this is true fact, is a man will only rise to his level of personal development. He will rise to or come down to the level of expectation. And this would tie into what you said about, or maybe when you asked, like, maybe why I didn't respond
Yeah, why
that
didn't
way,
you yell
like why I
at
didn't
me?
lash out. And tell you what I was really thinking is, how maybe we made it to 15 years. I'm speculating, if this is what I'm assuming, is treat your spouse and obviously treat others. You see this all over scripture when treat others like the way you want to be treated. Which is an easy thing to say, it's the cliche, but I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to that. And as I was mentioning, maybe deep down, subconsciously, always being yelled at as a kid and things like that, subconsciously, like, I didn't like that. I don't respond well to those types of things. Which ties in, like me not yelling at you, like, you see this in sports and things like that, these coaches that like rip their athletes' ass and some guys learn that way and some people learn that way. And today we're like, oh, kids are a bunch of sissies, and we're like, yeah, there's a lot to that. But some people respond well, some people respond to that type of coaching and that type of feedback, if you will. Like, I don't respond well if people that are yelling at me. Like, if you're trying to coach me and like boost me up and like trying to motivate me, like yelling and telling me that
Cutting me down,
like
it's terrible.
that doesn't motivate me at all. First off, I don't need that to motivate me. I'm self-motivated. I don't need that. My own motivation comes from my discipline, things like that. So deep down, I was like, you know what? I don't like being yelled at to motivate me to do things. And so that's why I don't yell at you. That's why I've never yelled at the kids, not even once.
That's why you tell me not to yell at the kids.
And sometimes she gets a little cray-cray, and I have to like
I'm half Latina.
bring it down. Like, I don't think you need to raise your voice the whole time. You can talk to them, And so, and believe it or not, you get what is it? Proverbs, like, calm words always do put away wrath.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing. And so, if you want your marriage to last, treat your spouse the way you want to be treated. And me, I don't want to be yelled at. I don't respond well to those kind of things, so I'm not going to yell at
which means
my
controlling
kids,
when you're
right?
at the height of your emotions, because that's when you're going to do it.
Yeah, that comes down to virtue, right? That's the third element that I talk about in our men's program. The third element of a strong man, strong in emotion. Strong in emotion is all about how to respond to your thoughts and feelings and things like that. And so men are not taught that. And so that's we were just talking about virtue today. And one of our key virtues is temperance. Prudence governs all virtue. So prudence, temperance is self-control. And so being temperate with your emotions, knowing when and how to respond to certain things, and just treating people the way that you want to be treated. I think that's what it all comes down to. I think if you can work on those things, not be an idiot, work on your own self-development,
Yep.
become a better man, become a better woman,
Responsible for
and
yourself.
treat your future spouse, your
Be nice.
person that you're betrothed to, treat them the way that you would want to be treated. And I think if you start there, I think things will grow and be fruitful from that point.
Yeah, it's just respect. It's not catering to the other person's every whim, and not being a doormat. It's just being respectful both ways.
That's it, guys. We're going to head back to our hotel. We're going to enjoy the rest of the day, but I thought we would, while we're on our walk, we pull out the camera and talk about how we got to 15 years of marriage, 17 years in total. So if you got any thoughts, if you're newly married, drop something below. Let us know how many years you've been married. If you're engaged, or maybe you want to get married and you haven't found that right man or woman,
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Worry about it.
Focus on yourself. You cannot give from an empty cup. You cannot love. God always says, love one another like you love yourself. If you can't love yourself, if you don't respect yourself, if you can't take care of your body, your mind, your emotions, you're not going to be able to.
But you're not going to be ready to receive the goodness when it comes your way.
You're not going to be able to take care of others, and those others will soon be a wife, children, things like that. So if you're newly married, again, if you're newly married, thinking about getting married, drop something in the comments. Let us know how many years you've been married, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.